What does a yellow light mean? Slow down. Okay. What?
Taxi is a legendary TV show. But here's the irony. It only aired for 5 years, got canceled twice, and in some seasons the ratings were shockingly low. Then, as Taxi slowly faded away, the lives of the people who came out of Sunshine Cab quietly drifted along with time. Not many people know that among them, some spent years haunted by their parents' divorce. Some carried insecurities about their unusual appearance. Others struggled far too long with drugs, alcohol, and painkillers, like so many stars caught up in that old Hollywood curse. So 48 years later, who are they? What have they been through? And what has time done to the Taxi cast? And if you're a true loyal fan, stick around till the end. Because besides the then and now journey, I also want to go over 5 of the strangest facts, which are also 5 Taxi memories a lot of people have slowly forgotten. Number 1, Judd Hirsch as Alex Reiger. Let's start with the first name, also one of the hardest working and most humble actors of our time. Judd Hirsch played Alex Reiger, the central character of the series. Hirsch was born in 1935. When Taxi premiered in 1978, he was 43. This year, he's 91. At first, Hirsch wasn't even into the idea of doing a long-running TV show. He said himself he even made tough demands to the producers, thinking they'd say no, but in the end, he still took the role. The result, he stayed with Taxi for 114 episodes and won 2 Emmys for playing Alex. After Taxi, Hirsch didn't get stuck in one role. He kept going strong with Dear John Numthers, A Beautiful Mind, Uncut Gems, and then The Fabelmans. In 2023, he got an Oscar nomination for The Fabelmans and became the second oldest actor ever nominated for an acting award at that time. For someone who wasn't even excited about TV at the start, that's a journey people can't help but respect. Judd Hirsch's personal life isn't loud, but it's far from easy or peaceful. He said he grew up poor in New York. His parents split when he was very young, his father left for 5 years, and the family had to live in basements, rented rooms, temporary places. Before acting, he studied physics at City College of New York, then worked outside the industry before switching to acting. His married life hasn't been smooth either. Hirsch has 3 kids, went through 2 failed marriages before marrying his current wife, Catherine Danielle Hirsch. This is the kind of life that goes through enough breakage to leave a man aging with a lot of weight inside. The most memorable public incident tied to him goes straight back to Taxi. During the infamous chaos around Tony Clifton, Andy Kaufman's alter ego Judd Hirsch was the one who exploded the hardest. He was genuinely furious because Clifton was wrecking the set. What's interesting is years later, Hirsch still described Andy Kaufman in real life as a sweet person, which says a lot about how he doesn't hold grudges. In 2025, he even reunited with the Taxi cast at a tribute event for Danny DeVito. At 91, Judd Hirsch is still working, still being mentioned. It's honestly a blessing that Hollywood still has a star like him. Number 2, Danny DeVito as Louie De Palma. You remember Danny DeVito, right? The man who turned Louie De Palma into one of Taxi's most unforgettable characters. DeVito was born in 1944. When Taxi premiered in 1978, he was 34. This year, he's 82. The role of Louie didn't just make him a TV star, it also got him an Emmy in 1981. The most interesting story I want to tell is during his audition, he walked in through the script on the table and opened with a line so rude even he thought he just blew it. Turns out that was the exact moment Louie De Palma got locked in. DeVito even went back to New York and followed a real dispatcher to nail the character before filming.
And I took one
Before
step
Taxi,
in
Danny DeVito's path into acting was anything
where
but
nothing
easy.
happened. And then
He didn't
they
rise
just
through looks or a typical star image.
laughing.
DeVito is about 4'10" due to multiple epiphyseal dysplasia, also known as Fairbanks disease, a rare disorder affecting bone growth. He was bullied for his short stature, and later admitted he had to make up for it with personality. Before acting, he studied cosmetology, worked at his sister's salon, then moved on to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. In his early days in Los Angeles, he even worked as a parking attendant to get by. This is the kind of journey any middle-aged man looks at and immediately understands nobody rolled out the red carpet for him. After Taxi, DeVito went far terms of endearment. romancing the Stone twins' Batman Returns, Matilda, and years later still hot with It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He also became a producer behind Jersey Films, tied to projects like Pulp Fiction and Aaron Brockovich, but his personal life is what really adds depth. DeVito met Rhea Perlman in 1971, married in 1982, had 3 kids, then went through separations in 2012, 2013, and 2017. They never divorced, stayed close, but clearly that's a long and not easy marriage. What's admirable about Danny DeVito is he never let physical limitations or personal cracks shrink him. In 2025, the Taxi cast reunited again to honor him at a gala by Roundabout Theater Company. At 82, Danny DeVito is still a name big enough to make both old and new Hollywood turn their heads. Number 3, Marilu Henner as Elaine O'Connor Nardo. In a cast full of strong male faces, Marilu Henner still carved out her own place with Elaine Nardo. She's the female lead of Taxi, a single mom working at an art gallery by day and driving a taxi at night to make ends meet. Henner was born in 1952. When Taxi premiered in 1978, she was 26. This year she's 74. She stayed with the show for 114 episodes, and the role brought her 5 Golden Globe nominations. Before Taxi, she already had a solid stage background from Grease, but Taxi was the big break that made her a familiar face on American TV. After Taxi, Marilu Henner didn't disappear. She kept working in film and TV with the man who loved women, Johnny Dangerously L. A Story Noises Off, then the sitcom Evening Shade. Later on, she became associated with Hallmark films and programs about health, memory, and lifestyle. But if you really look at her life, what sets her apart isn't just her career, it's how long she carried loss. When Henner was 17, her father suddenly died of a heart attack at 52. She said after that shock, she started eating emotionally and gained a lot of weight. Then, just a few years later, her mother developed severe rheumatoid arthritis, lost a leg, and passed away at 58, right after Henner turned 26. 2 blows that came way too early, way too close together. What makes her story even heavier is that she's one of the very few people in the world with highly superior autobiographical memory, or hyperthymesia, an extremely rare condition believed to exist in only about 100 known cases. Her personal life hasn't been smooth either. She married director Robert Lieberman in 1990, had 2 sons divorced in 2001, and that divorce involved custody disputes. Later, when she reconnected with an old acquaintance, Michael Brown. Another challenge hit just 2 months after they got back together. Brown was diagnosed with bladder cancer and early-stage lung cancer. He proposed to her right on his hospital bed after lung surgery, and they got married in December 2006. What's admirable about Marilu Henner is she didn't let those events drown her. She turned them into a clear way of living, becoming deeply focused on health reading, learning, writing books, talking about memory, and caring for loved ones with serious illness. In 2025, she also appeared at the Taxi cast reunion honoring Danny DeVito. Number 4, Tony Danza as Tony Banta. Tony Danza is a rare case in Taxi in real life. He was a boxer, and on screen he played a boxer. In the series, he played Tony Banta, a fighter who also drove a taxi, a role almost taken straight from his real life. Danza was born in 1951. When Taxi premiered in 1978, he was 27. This year, he's 75. Before acting, he studied at University of Dubuque, then boxed professionally in New York. What's interesting is he was cast in Taxi as an outsider, then gradually worked with the writers to shape Tony Banta into what he became. After Taxi, Tony Danza didn't stop at one sitcom. He went on strong with Who's the Boss, which ran from 1984 to 1992, then expanded into film and stage. People noted he continued with films like Angels in the Outfield, and Crash, got an Emmy nomination for The Practice, hosted his own talk show, performed on Broadway, and in recent years appeared in Power Book 3 Raising Kanan. In short, Taxi opened the door, but Danza kept walking through many others. Danza became a father very early. His first son, Mark, was born in 1971 when he was just 19 and still in college. His personal life hasn't been light either. His marriage to Tracy Robinson began in 1986. They separated in 2006. He filed for divorce in 2011, and it was finalized in 2013. He has 3 children confirmed by people Mark, Catherine, and Emily. Not a big explosive scandal, but a family life stretched over years and slowly cracked apart. The most serious incident was a skiing accident that nearly took his life. Danza said on Dr. Oz that he lost focus that day because it was his first Christmas without his mother. He said it straight. "The reason I fell is because I lost my mother. The accident left him in critical condition for nearly a month, and his representative said he was lucky to survive. That kind of fall makes a man rethink everything." Still, Danza didn't quit. In 2025, he reunited with the Taxi cast to honor Danny DeVito. Number 5. Andy Kaufman as Latka Gravas. Andy Kaufman never got to grow old with Hollywood. He passed away in 1984 at just 35. When Taxi premiered in 1978, he was only 29. To the general audience, Kaufman is tightly tied to Latka Gravas, but the character actually came from his stage act Foreign Man that James L. Brooks saw and immediately wanted in Taxi. It was Taxi that took Kaufman from a quirky stage performer to a familiar face in millions of American households. But that was also the problem with Andy Kaufman. He became famous for a role he didn't want to be stuck in for too long. He built his career by confusing audiences, making them uncomfortable, even angry. One of his most controversial acts was the intergender wrestling performances, where he turned himself into a provocateur by wrestling women and turning it all into a confrontational show. For Kaufman, controversy wasn't an accident. It was almost the way he worked. Even on the Taxi set, Andy Kaufman didn't let anyone relax. His alter ego, Tony Clifton, became one of the most infamous behind-the-scenes nightmares of the series. People reported that Kaufman had a clause allowing Tony Clifton to appear in one episode, and it turned the set into real chaos. Judd Hirsch was the one who got the angriest, and that confrontation was later revisited with audio recordings in the documentary Thank You Very Much. What's important is you can't just simplify Andy as someone everyone hated because people like Marilu Henner always remembered him in a warmer way. More accurately, Andy Kaufman was the kind of person who made everyone react strongly, just not in the same way. The biggest tragedy is how fast it all ended. In early 1984, Kaufman was diagnosed with a rare form of lung cancer. Even though he was known for living clean and not smoking, he declined very quickly. He even went to the Philippines for psychic surgery, a method later considered pseudoscience, as a last desperate attempt to save his life. He passed away on May 16th, 1984. Number 6. Christopher Lloyd as Reverend Jim Ignatowski. Christopher Lloyd is the kind of actor who doesn't need to step into the spotlight right away, but give him enough time on screen and eventually all eyes go to him. He was born in 1938. When Taxi premiered in 1978, he was 40. This year, he's 88. Reverend Jim wasn't a main role at first. The character appeared in season 1, and only after Randall Carver left did Jim become a regular. The result speaks for itself. Lloyd won 2 Emmys for the role in 1982 and 1983. Before Taxi, Christopher Lloyd didn't come up through sitcoms or mainstream TV. He came from theater, studied with Sanford Meisner, and went through more than 200 stage productions before breaking out on screen. After Taxi, he didn't stop. He went straight into pop culture icon territory with Doc Brown and Back to the Future, followed by Clue Who Framed Roger Rabbit, The Addams Family Nobody, and even recently an Emmy nomination in 2024 for Hacks. Christopher Lloyd's personal life goes almost the opposite direction of his characters. The Guardian described him as very shy, living a quiet, almost isolated life, avoiding talk shows because he doesn't like putting himself out there. He said he basically grew up just with his parents due to a big age gap with his siblings. His love life has had far more breakage than his calm image suggests. Lloyd has been through 5 marriages: Catherine Boyd, Kay Tornborg, Carol Ann Vanek, Jane Walker Wood, and Lisa Loyacono, whom he married in 2016. In 2008, his home in California was destroyed in a wildfire. He's not the kind of person with scandals that ruin his image. The weight in his life sits somewhere else, a life full of fractures, very private and quite alone. What's admirable is he never quit. In 2025, he reunited with the Taxi cast to honor Danny DeVito. At 88, Christopher Lloyd is still working, still being remembered, and still one of the rare actors who can go from Reverend Jim to Doc Brown without ever repeating himself. Number 7. Jeff Conaway as Bobby Wheeler. This was probably the saddest name in the main Taxi cast. Jeff Conaway died in 2011 at just 60 years old. When Taxi premiered in 1978, he was only 28. In the series, he played Bobby Wheeler, the cab driver chasing the dream of becoming an actor, and he appeared in 69 episodes from 1978 to 1982. The bitter part is that in real life, Conaway came into Taxi with what was almost the brightest starting point in the whole group. Before that, he had already been a child actor, performed on Broadway, then broke out in 1978 as Kenickie in Grease. Bobby Wheeler was written as a guy waiting for his big break, and at that point, Jeff Conaway really did look like someone who could become a major star. Even the way he got the part had a little irony to it. Conaway was first being considered for John Burns, then he himself asked to read for Bobby. Later casting records showed he was the only white actor seriously considered for Bobby, in a process that had originally leaned in a very different direction. But the place that opened up his career was also where a lot of the cracks started showing. Conaway's parents divorced when he was just 3. Reuters also quoted his manager saying his childhood had been unstable from very early on. By the 1980s, his life started sliding downhill because of alcohol, drugs, and prescription painkillers. Conaway spent years battling addiction, and his own manager believed the long-term back pain and repeated surgeries were what pushed him even deeper. Jeff Conaway's career did not die right after Taxi, but he never got his early momentum back. He still had Wizards and Warriors and later Babylon 5, but his public image in his final years became tied more to celebrity rehab and his very public struggles to get sober. In May 2011, Conaway was found unconscious at home, then fell into a coma. His family removed life support a few weeks later. Reuters reported that his death was later ruled an accident caused by multiple factors at once, including severe infection, pneumonia, and encephalopathy on top of a long period of declining health. Number 8, Carol Kane as Simka Gravas. Carol Kane came into Taxi later than a lot of the others, but once she showed up, that was enough for people to remember her forever. She was born in 1952. When Taxi premiered in 1978, she was 26. When Simka Gravas first started appearing in 1980, she was about 28. This year, Carol Kane is 74. Before Taxi, she was already a serious actress, even getting an Oscar nomination for Hester Street in 1976. Then with Taxi, she won 2 more Emmys for playing Simka Latka's quirky but unforgettable wife. Honestly, Carol Kane did not need much time at all to work her way into this show's memory. But her personal life was not smooth at all. Carol Kane's parents divorced when she was 12. Before that, she had already moved around constantly because of her father's work living in Paris, then Haiti, then going to boarding school in Connecticut. That was not a calm childhood. Even more than that, Kane admitted she used to feel ashamed of the very voice that made her famous. She said she had wished for a deeper, sexier voice, and when she looked back on her younger years, she had a lot of regret for spending so long thinking she was not pretty enough. She never married, never had children, and said she did not feel emotionally steady enough to be the kind of mother she would have wanted to be. After Taxi, Carol Kane did not disappear. She kept going with The Princess Bride, Scrooged, Addams Family Values, Unbreakable, Kimmy Schmidt, and in more recent years, got a lot of attention again with Between the Temples and Star Trek Strange New Worlds. In 2025, she also reunited with the Taxi cast to honor Danny DeVito. At 74, Carol Kane is still working, still different, and maybe that is the most beautiful thing about her Hollywood. Never really managed to swallow up somebody like that. Number 9, Randall Carver is John Burns. Randall Carver is the kind of face that if you watch Taxi from day one, you remember. But if you only remember the legendary version of the series, there's a good chance you forgot he was even there. Carver was born in 1946. When Taxi premiered in 1978, he was 32. This year, he's 80. In the first season, he played John Burns, the naive cab driver juggling taxi work and college working toward a forestry degree. He was one of Taxi's early regular faces, but also the one history left behind the fastest. Before Taxi, Randall Carver was no rookie. He graduated from Missouri Military Academy, then West Texas State University, served in the U.S. Army in the Korean DMZ area, and only after that kept pushing further into acting. Before John Burns, he had already landed some notable TV roles like Forever Fernwood. In other words, Taxi was not his first starting point, but it was his biggest chance to step into the main cast of a major sitcom. Then that chance passed really fast. John Burns only lasted through season 1, then got cut from the series. The character was removed from the show completely. The reason was pretty harsh and very Hollywood. Randall Carver himself admitted that John Burns and Tony Banta were too similar to the point where a lot of the lines could almost be swapped back and forth. After Taxi, Carver kept working with The Love Boat, The Norm Show, Malcolm in the Middle, and There Will Be Blood. He never had a huge breakthrough, but he never disappeared either. His official site is still active, still mentioning Taxi as the role he is most remembered for. And that probably says it all. Randall Carver never became a legend, but he is still there, part of that first season that hardcore Taxi fans will not forget. And now we're closing out the list with a name who did not appear as much as the main cast, but whose life afterward turned out way brighter. Number 10, Rhea Perlman as Zena Sherman. And this is the name that closes out the list in a really nice way. Rhea Perlman did not appear much in Taxi, but she ended up being one of the brightest success stories in the whole supporting group. She was born in 1948. When Taxi premiered in 1978, she was 30. This year she's 78. In the series, Perlman played Zena Sherman, Louie De Palma's girlfriend, and appeared in only 5 episodes from 1979 to 1982. It was not a big role, and she did not get much screen time, but just having Zena stand next to Louie was enough to make people remember her. And what made the role even more interesting was that in real life, Rhea Perlman was also the woman tied to Danny DeVito for decades. After Taxi, Rhea Perlman did not just keep acting, she went straight into American sitcom icon status as Carla Tortelli on Cheers. That role brought her 10 Emmy nominations, 4 wins, and 6 Golden Globe nominations. That is why Rhea Perlman is such a fitting way to close this list. She passed through Taxi as a memorable supporting role, then opened up a much bigger chapter for herself in American TV history. In the years after that, she kept showing up in Matilda the Sessions' Barbie in 2023 and got mentioned again with Poker Face Season 2 in 2025. But the part that lingers most with Rhea Perlman is still her personal life. She met Danny DeVito in 1971, moved in with him after just 2 weeks, then married in 1982, and had 3 children together. That used to be one of the longest-lasting marriages in Hollywood. Then life changed direction. They separated in 2012, got back together in 2013, then separated again from 2017 on, but they never divorced. Perlman said very clearly that the early stage after the split was really hard, but later they found a different kind of relationship, calmer, more mature, and still centered around family. At 78, Rhea Perlman is still working, still remembered, and still carries a very particular kind of afterglow. Not because she appeared the most in Taxi, but because she proves that sometimes a small role can still lead to a big life. Now let's change the mood a little. After 10 faces and all that rise and fall, there are a few behind-the-scenes stories around the Taxi cast that are a lot more fun than people think. For example, if Taxi and Cheers ever felt weirdly familiar to you, that is actually real. Rhea Perlman went from Taxi to Cheers and became the legendary Carla, while Ted Danson and George Wendt also drifted through Taxi before becoming icons in that bar. And speaking of Rhea Perlman, this is exactly the kind of story Hollywood loves. On screen, she was Zena, but in real life, she was the woman tied to Danny DeVito starting in 1971, married him in 1982, and had 3 children with him. So there are moments when, looking at Louie and Zena, you're not really just watching acting. Then there's Jeff Conaway, and his story is both interesting and a little bitter. At first, he was not the default choice for Bobby Wheeler, and he was even being considered for John Byrne's first. Sounds small, but one casting switch like that can totally change the energy of a character. Even more bitter later behind-the-scenes stories said that when Jeff was absent, his lines got handed to other people and the show still worked just fine. That is exactly the kind of truth only Hollywood can be that cold about. But the strangest one was still Andy Kaufman. Some people went crazy because of Tony Clifton, other people still genuinely cared about him. And maybe that is what was most Andy about him. Even his own co-workers never remembered him the same way. Taxi, in just about every way, is the greatest sitcom ever made. You may have your own favorites, and my taste can change over time too, but if you look honestly at the cast, the rhythm of the dialogue, the depth of the characters, the warmth, the bitterness, and the way the show aged alongside America's memory, Taxi still feels almost like the perfect standard. And maybe that is exactly why this then and now journey hits people so hard. Not just because we're curious who changed, how after nearly half a century, but because looking at them today also means looking back at a time when American television really knew how to tell small stories that stayed with people for a very long time. So what about you? Which name or which fact surprised you the most? Tell me in the comments, and if you want, we'll keep digging up another TV legend in the next video.